So you're looking to really improve your English speaking skills, huh?
That's great.
It's amazing how much fluency can really open up in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, everything from career opportunities to just connecting with people from all over. It's like unlocking a whole new level of experience.
For sure.
You're probably already picturing all the amazing conversations you'll have, right?
Yeah. And what really stood out to me going through this material was the focus on building confidence right alongside fluency.
Yeah.
It's like they recognize that fear of making mistakes can be a major roadblock for people.
Yeah, for sure.
And they offer some creative ways to kind of break through that.
I noticed that too. It's not just about like grammar drills,
Right.
or like memorizing huge lists of vocabulary.
Yeah.
This material really digs into the mental game
Absolutely.
of language learning.
Yes.
Which I think is so important.
It is.
It actually reminds me of this time maybe I'll save that story for later. But what really caught my eye was this whole idea of thinking in English.
Yes. That's a game changer.
I know it sounds kind of intimidating at first.
It can be, but it's about shifting away from translating everything in your head.
Right.
And instead actually processing your thoughts directly in English.
Okay.
Think of it like learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
At first, you're kind of wobbly. You're overthinking every move.
Yeah.
But with practice, it becomes like second nature.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you actually start doing that?
Well, the source suggests starting small.
Okay.
So try like narrating your daily activities in English,
Okay.
even simple things.
Like what?
Like I'm making coffee
Okay.
or I'm walking the dog.
Uh-huh.
It might feel silly at first,
Right.
but it trains your brain to start forming those thoughts directly in English.
You know what? I'm going to try that.
Awesome.
Because I always find myself translating everything in my head.
Yeah.
Which is exhausting.
It is.
But I love this idea of just starting with those little everyday moments.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, you can start incorporating more complex thoughts, and conversations.
Yeah.
The key is just to be patient with yourself and celebrate those small victories along the way.
Speaking of victories, the source also talks about the power of shadowing.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever tried that technique?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites.
Really?
So imagine like shadowing a scene from your favorite movie.
Okay.
You're not just repeating the lines. You're embodying the character. You're feeling the rhythm of their speech.
Oh, wow.
It's a really fun way to kind of internalize natural intonation and pronunciation.
That sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to try that.
Awesome.
It's almost like becoming an actor, right?
Yeah.
Immersing yourself in the language.
You got it. And you can shadow anything, really. Podcasts, audiobooks, TED Talks.
Cool.
It's a fantastic way to pick up on those subtle nuances of spoken English
Right.
that you often miss in textbooks.
Okay, so we're thinking in English, we're shadowing like prose. What's the next step on this fluency adventure?
Well, the source emphasizes building a practical vocabulary.
Okay.
And this isn't about like memorizing obscure words
Right.
just to try and impress people.
Yeah,
It's about focusing on words and phrases that are relevant to your daily life,
that makes sense.
your interests, your goals.
Yeah, why waste time on words you'll never use?
Exactly.
It's all about being strategic, right?
Yes.
And just focusing on what will actually help you communicate.
I completely agree. And the source gives some really helpful tips
Oh, good.
for identifying those key words and phrases.
Like what?
So, for example, they suggest keeping a vocabulary journal
Okay.
where you jot down new words you encounter along with their definitions and maybe some example sentences.
Oh, I like that it's like creating your own
Right.
personalized dictionary.
Exactly.
And then the key is to actually use those words in real conversations, right?
Yes. Speaking of conversations, the source is a big advocate for simply speaking out loud as much as possible.
That makes sense.
It might feel awkward at first, especially if you're not used to hearing yourself speak English.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I used to feel so self-conscious about my accent and making mistakes.
Yeah.
But you know what? The source points out something really important.
What's that?
Even native speakers make mistakes
That's so true.
all the time.
Yeah, and it's actually those mistakes that help us learn and grow.
Right.
The source encourages us to reframe those mistakes as learning moments
I love that.
and to just keep practicing without fear of judgment.
I love that reframing.
Yeah,
It takes the pressure off.
for sure.
Allows you to just enjoy the process of experimenting with the language.
Absolutely.
But let's be real. Finding opportunities to practice speaking can be tough,
It can be.
especially if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Right. That's where the source's creativity really shines.
Okay.
They offer a ton of practical suggestions for incorporating English into your daily life.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, well, for starters, they suggest watching movies and TV shows in English,
Right.
but ditch the subtitles
Ooh.
and really focus on listening to the dialogue.
That's a good challenge.
It forces you to pay attention to those nuances of pronunciation and intonation. And I bet you'd pick up a lot of slang and colloquialisms that way too.
Oh, for sure.
And they also recommend listening to podcasts and audiobooks, which are great for expanding your vocabulary and improving listening comprehension.
And what about actually speaking?
Right.
Any tips for finding conversation partners?
Yeah, they suggest exploring language exchange platforms.
What are those?
So these are platforms where you can connect with people from all over the world
Oh, cool.
who are also learning English.
Oh,
It's a win-win.
yeah.
You get to practice speaking and you make new friends from different cultures.
I love that. It's like turning language learning into a global adventure.
I like that.
But what if you're not quite ready to jump into full-blown conversations with strangers? The source has some ideas for that too, right?
They do. They suggest starting with smaller, less intimidating interactions.
Like what?
So, for example, try ordering your coffee in English next time you're at a cafe.
Oh, okay.
Or strike up a conversation with a fellow English learner online.
Those are great ideas.
Yeah,
It's all about building up your confidence gradually, step by step.
exactly. And you know what really resonated with me is the source's emphasis on making the learning process fun and enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's face it, if you're not enjoying it, you're less likely to stick with it.
So true. It's like anything else in life. When you're having fun, you're more motivated, more engaged, and more likely to succeed.
Absolutely. And the source provides a ton of creative ideas
Oh, good.
for making language learning feel less like a chore
Okay.
and more like a playground.
All right. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What are some of those fun ideas? I'm all ears.
Well, let's save those for the next part of our deep dive.
Brilliant.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
And I want to make sure we have plenty of time to explore all the exciting possibilities that await on your journey to fluency.
Perfect. This has been so insightful already.
Good.
I'm already feeling more motivated and inspired to really take my English skills to the next level.
That's fantastic to hear, and I can't wait to share even more practical tips and techniques
Like it.
that will help you unlock your full potential as a confident and fluent English speaker. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive even deeper into these fluency boosting strategies.
Right.
Before the break, we were talking about making language learning fun.
Yes.
And I thought it was really interesting how the source talked about turning everyday activities into English practice opportunities.
That's such a powerful concept. It's about weaving English into the fabric of your life.
Right.
Rather than treating it as this separate, isolated activity.
Right, like a chore.
Exactly. And they emphasize that you don't need to set aside these huge chunks of time for studying.
Right.
Instead, it's about those small, consistent efforts that add up over time.
I love that approach.
Yeah.
It makes language learning feel so much more accessible and less daunting.
For sure.
It's like instead of dreading a formal study session,
Right?
you can just sprinkle a little English into your daily routine.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is you can tailor it to your own interests and passions.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say you're a music lover.
Okay.
Instead of just passively listening to your favorite English songs, really tune in to the lyrics.
Yeah.
Maybe even print them out and try singing along.
Ooh, karaoke style language learning.
Exactly.
I can definitely get behind that.
Awesome.
Way more engaging than just staring at a textbook.
For sure, for sure.
And while we're on the topic of entertainment, what about movies and TV shows?
Right.
I know a lot of people watch with subtitles.
Yeah.
But is there a way to make that more active?
Absolutely. The source suggests switching things up a bit.
Okay.
So try watching a familiar movie or episode in English with the subtitles off.
Ooh, with the subtitles off.
Yeah, you'll be surprised how much you can understand just from the context,
Right.
the body language, the tone of voice. And then if you need to rewatch with subtitles to catch anything you missed.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
It's like turning movie night into a listening comprehension challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of challenges, I'm curious about this section in the source about preparing for specific situations.
Okay.
They use the example of a job interview,
Right.
which can be nerve-wracking enough in your native language,
Oh, absolutely.
let alone a second language.
The thought of doing a job interview in another language
Yeah.
can definitely send shivers down your spine.
For sure.
But the source breaks it down into these manageable steps.
Okay, good.
So they suggest researching common interview questions for your field
Okay.
and practicing your answers in English.
So it's all about being prepared.
Yes.
And anticipating those tricky questions. But it's not about memorizing a script.
No.
It's more about getting comfortable with the vocabulary and structure that you'll need to use.
Exactly. The goal is to feel confident and prepared so you can really focus on showcasing your skills and personality during the actual interview.
Yeah. And this approach can be applied to all sorts of situations, right?
Absolutely.
From ordering food at a restaurant to giving a presentation.
It's like having a toolkit of phrases and expressions ready to go.
I love that.
So you're not fumbling for words when the pressure is on?
I used to get really flustered trying to order coffee in English.
Oh, really?
But then I realized it's basically the same interaction every time.
Right.
So once I practiced the key phrases, it became so much easier.
There you go. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It highlights another key takeaway from the source.
Okay.
The importance of breaking down these big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more achievable steps. So instead of aiming for perfect fluency overnight, focus on mastering specific situations one at a time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, how do you eat an elephant?
How?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. I like that.
But even with all these practical tips, staying motivated and consistent can be a challenge.
It can be.
I know I've struggled with that in the past. What does the source suggest for those moments when you just don't feel like studying?
Well, they acknowledge that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay.
There will be days when you're tired or busy or simply not in the mood.
Right.
But they offer some really helpful strategies for staying on track, even when your motivation wanes.
Okay, I'm all ears. I definitely need all the motivation boosting tips I can get.
All right, so one of their key suggestions is to reconnect with your why.
My why.
Yes, why did you start learning English in the first place?
Okay.
Was it to travel the world, connect with new people, advance your career, or simply expand your horizons?
It's like reminding yourself of the bigger picture.
Exactly.
All those exciting possibilities that fluency can unlock.
Absolutely. And another tip is to break those big, ambitious goals down into smaller, more manageable milestones.
Okay.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by the thought of becoming perfectly fluent, focus on having a 5-minute conversation in English today.
Okay.
Or learning 5 new words this week.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's all about celebrating those small victories along the way.
Yes.
Which can really boost your confidence and keep you motivated.
Absolutely. But let's be honest, sometimes even those small goals can feel tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you're feeling stuck or discouraged.
For sure.
Does the source have any advice for dealing with those inevitable setbacks?
I hope so.
They do, and this is where their emphasis on kindness and patience really shines.
Okay.
They remind us that it's okay to have bad days, to make mistakes, to feel frustrated. It's all part of the learning process.
So it's not about beating ourselves up.
No.
When we stumble. It's about acknowledging those challenges.
Yes.
And finding ways to move forward.
You got it. And they suggest a few concrete strategies for bouncing back from those moments of doubt.
Okay, what are they?
First, remember to reconnect with your why, as we discussed earlier.
Right.
Second, reach out for support.
Okay.
Talk to a friend who's also learning English. Join an online language community.
Okay.
Or seek guidance from a teacher or a tutor.
It's like building a cheer squad to help you through those rough patches.
I like that.
And sometimes just knowing that you're not alone in this struggle can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And finally, the source emphasizes the importance of celebrating your progress no matter how small.
Yeah.
Acknowledge those little victories, track your growth, and give yourself credit for all the effort you're putting in.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in that not good enough yet mentality.
Right.
But it's crucial to recognize how far you've come.
Yes.
And appreciate the journey itself. Speaking of the journey, this source seems to have a really positive and encouraging tone throughout.
It does.
Was that something that resonated with you?
Absolutely. It's so refreshing to find a resource that acknowledges the challenges of language learning without making it feel intimidating or overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, hey, this is going to be tough sometimes, but you got this.
Yeah.
We're here to support you every step of the way.
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
It's not just about mastering grammar rules and vocabulary.
Right.
It's about fostering a love of language.
Yes.
A genuine desire to connect with others. And a belief in your own ability to succeed.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And you know what really struck me was the source's emphasis on the power of positive self-talk.
Oh, yes, that's so important.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in those negative thoughts, like I'm so bad at this or I'll never be fluent.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
But the source encourages us to reframe those thoughts into something more empowering.
So instead of focusing on your perceived shortcomings,
Right.
try acknowledging your efforts and celebrating your progress.
Exactly. So instead of saying, I'm terrible at grammar,
Yeah.
try saying, I'm learning new grammar rules every day.
Okay.
And I'm getting better with practice.
It's like replacing those self-critical voices with a supportive inner coach.
Exactly.
And I imagine that shift in mindset
Yeah,
can make a huge difference in terms of motivation and resilience.
absolutely. And building on that idea, the source also highlights the importance of embracing mistakes as opportunities for growth.
Mistakes as opportunities.
Yes, instead of seeing them as failures,
Yeah.
view them as valuable feedback
Okay.
that can help you pinpoint areas where you need to focus your efforts.
That's such a great perspective.
It is.
It's like those mistakes are actually signposts
Mm-hmm.
guiding you towards fluency.
I like that.
They're not something to be ashamed of,
No.
but rather something to learn from.
Yeah. Precisely. And the source even suggests keeping a mistake journal.
A mistake journal.
Yeah, where you can jot down errors you make along with the correct way to say or write something.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it allows you to track your progress and see how you're evolving over time.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
It's like turning those mistakes into valuable data points.
Yes.
They can help you refine your skills
Mm-hmm.
and accelerate your learning.
Exactly. And, another powerful tool that the source recommends is visualization.
Visualization.
Yes, take a few moments each day to imagine yourself speaking English fluently and confidently.
Okay.
Whether it's in a job interview, a casual conversation with friends, or even just ordering your favorite coffee.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like creating a mental movie of yourself achieving your goals,
Exactly.
which can boost your confidence and motivation.
Absolutely. It's almost like you're rehearsing for success.
I love that.
Yeah, and the more you visualize yourself succeeding, the more likely you are to actually achieve those goals.
That makes sense.
It's all about programming your mind for fluency.
This is amazing. I'm already feeling so much more inspired and equipped to tackle this language learning journey.
I'm so glad to hear that.
But before we get too carried away, I know we have one more part of our deep dive to go.
We do.
We've explored some really powerful strategies for building fluency,
Yeah,
but there's even more to uncover.
there is.
In the next part, we'll delve into some advanced techniques
Yeah?
that can help you fine-tune your skills and take your English to a whole new level.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what other gems we uncover
See you soon.
in the source material. We'll be back after a quick break
Okay.
to wrap up our deep dive into unlocking fluent English. Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into unlocking fluent English.
All right.
Before the break, we were talking about the power of visualization
Yes.
and positive self-talk.
Absolutely.
But even with the best mindset, we all hit those plateaus,
Mm-hmm.
those moments of frustration.
For sure.
What does the source suggest for navigating those challenging phases?
Well, the source acknowledges that progress isn't always linear.
Right,
There will be times when you feel stuck,
Yeah.
discouraged,
Mhm.
but it emphasizes that these bumps in the road are totally normal.
Okay.
They don't mean you're failing.
So it's not about avoiding those challenges,
No.
but about developing the resilience to kind of push through them.
Exactly.
Does the source offer any strategies for staying motivated when you just feel like giving up?
They do, and one of the most compelling suggestions is to shift your focus
Okay.
from the destination to the journey.
Okay.
So instead of obsessing over achieving perfect fluency,
Right.
try to find joy in the learning process itself.
So it's like saying, hey, even if I never sound exactly like a native speaker,
Mm-hmm.
I can still appreciate the beauty of the language
Exactly.
and the connections it allows me to make.
Yes, and the source reminds us that language learning is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's a lifelong adventure. It's not about reaching some finish line.
Right.
It's about continually expanding your horizons and enriching your life through language.
I love that.
Yeah,
It takes the pressure off,
for sure.
allows you to approach learning with more curiosity
Yes,
and playfulness.
absolutely.
But what about the practical side of things?
Okay.
Does the source offer any techniques for breaking through those plateaus?
They do, and one of the most intriguing techniques is called spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition.
Yes, have you heard of that?
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It's like flashcards, but with a strategic timing system.
Exactly. So instead of cramming vocabulary or grammar rules all at once,
Right.
you space out your review sessions
Okay.
over days, weeks, even months.
That makes sense.
This helps to solidify that information in your long-term memory.
It's like giving your brain those little reminders.
Yes.
It needs to prevent the information from fading away.
Exactly. And speaking of memory, the source also talks about the importance of actively engaging with the language rather than just passively consuming it.
Right.
So they suggest a variety of techniques for active learning,
Like some.
summarizing what you've read or heard,
Okay.
teaching the material to someone else, or even creating your own flashcards and quizzes.
I love those ideas.
Yeah.
It's all about turning language learning into an interactive experience.
Yes.
Rather than just trying to absorb information like a sponge.
Exactly. And I imagine that active engagement makes the learning process a lot more fun and effective.
Oh, for sure.
And one of the most powerful techniques for active learning is something we touched on earlier.
What's that?
Speaking.
Ah, yes.
The source emphasizes that there's simply no substitute for
Okay.
actually using the language in real-life conversations.
I completely agree, but I know that can be intimidating for a lot of learners,
It can be.
especially those who are still building their confidence.
Yes.
Does the source offer any tips for overcoming that fear of speaking?
They do, and one of the most practical suggestions is to start small. Don't feel pressured to jump into these complex conversations right away.
Right.
Instead, focus on mastering everyday interactions,
Like what?
like ordering food, asking for directions, making small talk with colleagues.
Those are great starting points.
Yeah.
It's all about building up your confidence gradually,
Yes.
one conversation at a time.
And as you gain experience, you'll naturally feel more comfortable tackling those more challenging situations.
Exactly. And the source also highlights the importance of finding a supportive language community.
Oh, yes.
Surrounding yourself with other learners
Yeah.
who are going through similar experiences
For sure.
can provide encouragement, accountability,
Mm-hmm.
and a safe space to practice
Absolutely.
without fear of judgment.
That's such a valuable tip.
It is. It's like having a cheer squad to celebrate your victories
Yeah.
and offer support when you stumble.
And speaking of support, the source also emphasizes seeking guidance from experienced teachers or tutors.
Right. Because while self-study can be incredibly beneficial, having access to a knowledgeable instructor
Yes.
can help you refine your skills,
Mm-hmm.
correct any ingrained errors,
Right.
and just provide personalized feedback.
It's like having a personal trainer for your language skills.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I imagine that personalized guidance can make a huge difference in terms of accelerating your progress.
Well, for sure.
And, one of the most inspiring aspects of this source is its emphasis on the transformative power of language learning.
The transformative power. Tell me more about that.
So they argue that learning a new language goes far beyond just acquiring vocabulary and grammar rules.
Okay.
It's about expanding your worldview,
Okay.
connecting with different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
developing a deeper understanding of yourself and others.
That's beautiful.
It is.
It's like language learning becomes a journey of self-discovery
Yes.
and personal growth.
Exactly. And the source illustrates this idea
Okay.
with stories of individuals who have used their language skills to bridge cultural divides, forge meaningful connections, and make a positive impact on the world.
I'm feeling so inspired right now.
It's great.
It's like this source isn't just about learning English.
Right.
It's about unlocking a whole new level of human connection and potential.
I could have said it better myself.
Huh.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought
Okay.
from the source that really resonated with me.
What is it?
Fluency isn't just about the words you speak.
Okay.
It's about the connections you make, the experiences you have,
Mm-hmm.
and the person you become along the way.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
It is.
It's like saying that language learning is a journey of both the mind and the heart.
I like that.
It's about opening yourself up to new possibilities,
Yes.
new perspectives, and new ways of seeing the world.
Exactly. So keep practicing, keep exploring,
Okay.
and most importantly, keep believing in yourself and your ability to achieve fluency.
I love it.
The world of English awaits.
This has been such an incredible journey.
It has.
I feel like we've gone from feeling overwhelmed by the challenge of fluency to feeling empowered and excited to embrace this learning process.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Be kind to yourself, celebrate your progress, and never stop exploring the amazing world of language.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into unlocking fluent English.
Yes.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools to take your language skills to the next level.
We do, and until next time, happy learning.